Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, LLC. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery program, and I don't claim to speak for any 12-step fellowship. My hope is that you will find my words helpful in some way, whether you're in recovery or not. This is episode 116, How to Change Other People's Behavior So You Can Have Better Relationships. If you're a fan of this podcast and want to support it, please check me out on Patreon. If you're not familiar, Patreon is a platform created by creators for creators that allows them to be supported and rewarded for their work by their fans and followers. You can find me at patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. This is kind of a stealth episode because I'm really going to be talking about you, not other people. Because here's what I've learned. The way to change other people's behavior is by changing the way we behave towards them. This has been on my mind a lot lately because I coach people on boundaries. And one of the most frequent things I hear from my clients and my prospective clients is that they want to learn how to have healthy boundaries because they think that that's going to enable them to control other people's behavior. And I always say boundaries are for you, not for other people. And what I mean by that is they're about you changing your behavior. There's a book I read well before recovery that really helped a lot in this regard. It's called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner, Lerner. The reason she calls it the dance of anger is because she uses the metaphor of dancing. When you're in a dance with someone, if you change your steps, they either have to change their steps or get out of the dance. That is, if you change your behavior with people you interact with, they must change their interactions with you in some way. She's essentially talking about boundaries throughout the book, and she talks about anger as being an indication of when it's time to set a boundary, reassert a boundary, or tighten a boundary. And reading it relates to my greatest gift from recovery, which I learned years after reading the book. And my greatest gift was coming to understand my part in things. I had no fucking idea what I was doing that created dysfunction and chaos or exacerbated the chaos and dysfunction around me and the general dis-ease in my life. I really didn't know. And recovery got me to see that. And lo and behold, when I stopped doing all the things I was doing, I'd say something like 85% of the chaos in my life went away. Now, some of that is because the people around me changed in the ways they were interacting with me, but that was because I changed the way I was interacting with them. Some of it was also that my part in the chaos and dysfunction of my life was I was hanging out with dysfunctional and chaotic people. And I don't hang out with those kind of people anymore. What just came to mind as I was saying that is one of my sponsees got a call from her dad a couple weeks ago just to see how she was doing, which had never happened before. And when they hung up from the call, they both said, "I love you." And my sponsee truly believed that her dad meant it. She meant it. And she said, "This is insane that this is our relationship now." Because when I started sponsoring her 3.5 years ago, she truly believed that her dad was the center and the cause of all of her problems. Here's the really interesting thing. Her dad is not in recovery. My sponsee is the one in recovery. Yet everything has changed about their 45-year relationship. And that is because my sponsee has changed. She changed the steps of the dance with her father. Some of the things you can do to change other people by changing the way you're behaving include actually telling the truth to people about what you want, need, think, and feel. I know that for some of you, you'd rather die than do that, and I know how that feels. In the beginning of my recovery, I often felt like I was going to die when engaging in new behaviors or even thinking about engaging in new behaviors. One of the things that my step group did for each other was that we'd talk about the new things that we did and we'd say as a group, and you didn't die. And that may sound funny and amusing to some of you, but I needed to hear that. I needed to reaffirm for myself that even though I felt like I was going to die, I didn't. And deeply integrating that knowledge intellectually and emotionally really mattered to me. And I started to get less and less scared about doing new things. I'll also say that step group were people who were literally and metaphorically holding my hand through my change process. One of the most helpful things that aids in negating a lot of the distress we have when we're starting to change our behavior or set boundaries with people for the first time is being connected to others. That's something everybody that comes into recovery is horrible at. Most of us are super good at isolating, and the antidote to that is connection. The antidote to addiction is connection, as a matter of fact. Connection with yourself, with your higher power, and with other human beings. Another thing that you can do to begin changing your behavior is start taking really good care of yourself. That means meeting your own needs whenever possible and not waiting for other people to take care of you. One of the phrases that helps me the most in this regard is this: let go of my expectations of others and meet my own needs. Here's an example of this that I shared in one of my Facebook groups the other day. I stay over at my sweetheart's house all the time, and sometimes I like to have a small blanket for snuggling, either when it's cold in the winter or maybe even in the summer when the air conditioning's on. Now, he has a bunch of different blankets, but none of them are very soft the way I like them. Now, I can tell you 100% certainty that in the past, I would have blamed him for not having good blankets, probably wouldn't have told him any of this, and I would have been mad, like repeatedly, that there were no good blankets, and I would have taken it out on him, at least subconsciously. But I have new ways now. I bought a blanket that I like, and I brought it over there. Instead of having this expectation that he should have the kind of blanket that I think he should have, and maybe even expecting that he should know that he should have my kind of blankets. I let go of those expectations and met my own needs by bringing the kind of blanket I really like to his house. I let go of the expectation that he should either have a blanket that I like or know that he should have a blanket that I like. Now, I could go on and on with other examples of how you can change your behavior so that others around you will change theirs. But I've got tons of other episodes and a shitload of stuff on my website that can help you. I've posted a ton on Facebook and especially on Instagram to help you figure out things you can do to change your life, which will result in the people around you changing the way that they treat you. But by far, the number one thing you can do to make that happen is learning how to set healthy boundaries. There's a page on my website specifically about how to set boundaries. It has a free download, a free article, and links to my top 5 podcasts about setting boundaries, or podcast episodes. Go to higherpowercc.com and look under the menu My Issue Is and choose Setting Boundaries. You'll get the free handout, the free article, and it'll link you to 5 podcasts about setting boundaries. Anyway, learning how to set healthy boundaries, that is figuring out the boundary of you, what it is you like, want, need, and prefer, and learning where you end and other people begin is probably the most important thing you can do to change your behavior, which will result in changing other people's ways of interacting with you. So I challenge you this week to change the dance with somebody. Whoever just popped in your head right now, that person. Do something different in the way you interact with them. It could be simply changing your expectations of them. Oh, and this just popped into my head. Now, when that happens, when I'm recording a podcast episode, I always go with it. I assume it's my higher power nudging me. I heard someone in recovery once say, my amends to my brother is that I'm going to lower my expectations of him. And I was like, oh, holy shit, that's totally what I'm going to do with my brother. Because I realized that a lot of my issue with my brother is that I have unrealistic expectations of him. He happens to be one of the most well-read and informed humans I've ever met. Yet, his entire life, he has performed way below his potential. So obviously, I've had an expectation of some potential that he, quote, should have lived up to. And I also expected that he should be able to communicate like a normal person instead of yelling and screaming all the time. Yet he's apparently not capable of that. So I've lowered my expectations of him. And holy shit, has that transformed things for me. So anyway, maybe that's the thing that you'll do to change, which is change your expectations of others. Whatever it is, I challenge you to do something to change the dance this week. One last thing. I'm giving away 10 free 45-minute free breakthrough boundaries calls. And as of this moment, I have 5 of those calls left. And the way to get one of those calls is to message me. You can either DM me on Instagram at Higher Power Coaching or email me, barb@higherpowercc.com. And I'll send you a link to sign up on my calendar. By the time this episode comes out, maybe there won't be any spots left, but take your chances. I'd love to help you work on developing healthy boundaries and changing your behavior so those around you change the way they behave toward you, and you can have better relationships that fit the way you really want to feel in your life. That's it for today. If you've been finding this podcast helpful, please consider a donation to ensure I can continue. To choose the level of support that feels right to you, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. Please also review it on Apple Podcasts, like and subscribe to it on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps others to find the podcast. Now, if someone in particular came to mind when you listened to this episode, please share it with them. And don't forget, I'm on Instagram at Higher Power Coaching. I run group and private coaching programs on creating healthy boundaries. And if that sounds like something that would interest you, head on over to barbchat.net, where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, then go to barbchat.net and get on my calendar. My goal with all of my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.